Good morning. Now that the garden's all cleaned up, we can talk about what survived the winter. These are Brussels sprouts. You can see some small sprouts starting. But they didn't grow very well last year. This is the better one. And there's some small sprouts starting. I'm going to leave them and see what they'll do this year. This one, however, it was growing fairly well last year. And I harvested several Brussels sprouts down low here. And in the winter, I had left all the leaves that were higher up on, so this was just a mass of leaves. And when I did the cleanup, these leaves down here were dead, so I cut off all of those leaves. And now you can see I have several Brussels sprouts to harvest here in late April 2021. And the top looks fine. I'm going to leave this in this bed, even though I'm going to use the bed for something else. And we'll see what happens this year. Cabbage. You can see that there's 3 little heads here. Last year, I cut them. So there was a head in here, a fairly nice head, and I just cut out the hard head out of the center, and I left the leaves laying there. That wasn't last year, that was the year before. Last year now, it took out, see, I cut one from back here, there was another one here, another one here, and another one in here. But it's 2 plants. They split into 3. And so, like I said, last year I took the small head. It was a smaller head, but it was a good head. And I just cut out the head out of the center, leaving the leaves around. And this year it's coming back with 3 more. We'll see how big these heads get now over the summer. But I have 3 forming here, 1 forming there, and another forming in there of a plant that I planted 2 years ago now. There are 3 plants in there. We'll see what they do. Turnip now, that survives anyway. We already know that. There's nothing much to show you here, but last year I didn't harvest all the peas that were here. When I was cleaning up this area, I found 1 sprouted pea. There may be more there, I don't know. Onions have become another thing of interest. I planted onions here 2 years ago. This is actually 1 plant. It's split into 2, and now it's growing 2 onions. Some of the onions that regrew last year, they expanded their bulbs, and I was able to harvest a bigger bulb than I would have if I harvested them the year before. This one here now is coming forth, and I just noticed that here we have another onion that has split into 2 onions, and maybe 3. So onions seem to be a bunching type crop anyway. It's just that some of them must be made to get that huge bulb and some of them made for, like they say, bunching. When you miss onions in the fall, when you're harvesting your onions, and you find them, you just take them and see. Like this one here is, it's rotten, so it probably won't come to anything. But when I feel this one, he's nice and firm. And as you can see, he's starting to grow. I wanted to point this one out. There's two plants that grows up like this commonly. One is chamomile, and the other one is what we call pineapple weed. Pineapple weed is also known as wild chamomile. So when you see this plant, you have to wait for it to grow a little while to distinguish between, is it our regular chamomile or is it the wild chamomile. Last year was my first year for growing lovage, so I'm happy to see that it survived the winter. This is the one by the front fence. But this is the one in the herb garden, in the two herb beds. So you can see it's coming forth much better. And it's got a lot of sprouts. This is going to be a really big plant this year. These two kill plants, and they are putting on new growth this year. They have been here, I think this is their 4th year actually. They're nice and healthy. They're not growing nicely just because I didn't prune them. I just let them grow as they would grow. Last year they sent up seed, and the year before they put out flowers. But the leaves are still nice and firm, and they come back every year. I didn't need to plant kale this year. I have there's 5 kale plants growing in this bed. Actually, I think that one back there is a broccoli. So 4 kale plants growing in this bed. And I have 2 nice 2-year-old kale plants growing in this bed. Plus, I have 2 already in the house that I was growing over winter. So, oh yeah, and there's another kale plant right in the back there. The strawberries, I didn't move them at the proper time last year. So, when I cleaned out the bed, I put in a stick where each live strawberry plant was. So I'm quite pleased, actually. I would have lost, see, I only have 1 stick along this row, so there's 2 I lost there. But they're planted 1 foot apart in each distance, so 3 across and 1, 2, 3 down. There doesn't look to be much there, but there is 1 growing. There's 1 missing in the middle there, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6 that are not coming back out of 24. I had a seed plant planted here, so there was no strawberries planted right here on this end. There is some few easy plants that I can get to replace the ones that didn't come back, to fill in this space, and maybe I'll replace the ones that are really tiny as well. It depends on how many easy ones I can get, which means I don't really have to do much work with these 2 beds over here. I'll just put a bed on top of them and fill it up. Oh yeah, I started to say that I moved them at a very poor time. It was in August, but I was doing other things, and that was the time I had to move them. I said, I hope they survives, and I planted them there, and I put the grass mulch all around them and let them sit and see what they would do. Okay, so at the same time I transplanted the strawberries, I moved the asparagus because I was thinking it was much too wet down there for them. Now this bed is not cleaned out because the asparagus were there, and I have to be very careful when I'm cleaning out this bed. So I got down here now, and you can see the one little sprout that's coming from asparagus there. I put in 2 sticks here. I don't see anything coming up of an asparagus there, but there's one little sprout there. And these little things, that should be radishes. I had the radishes grow up here to seed. If you look back in my videos, you'll see that. Over here, the crown of the asparagus is showing, and you can see there's a couple of shoots starting on it right here. So they survived. That would be 3 that survived, and they're just barely up. So when I very carefully go over this bed, I may find other ones that have survived as well. As I was cleaning up, the tarragon is here, which I expected to come back, and it was all growing up. And when I cleaned it out, I didn't notice. I had everything cleaned up, and then I noticed this. A bird had been building his nest right in between the old tarragon sprouts and the thyme that's there. Sorry that I did it. If I had noticed it before, I would have left it up there and let them have their young there. Broadleaf sage, it's looking pretty raggedy, but I think it'll come back. They're not hardy. They're hardy zone 4 and 5, so it'll come back. Okay, so here's the old parsley plant right here, and there's bits of green around it, but that may have come from the other ones. The 3 that I had planted last year are on either side of it. They're growing good. And now after I show you this, the ones that are just laying right on the ground, all the ring out around, I'll harvest those and bring them in and dry them and use some fresh right away and dry what I can't. Now, as for the old one, remember it grew up and had a big seed head. Look at this. Hundreds of little parsley plants growing up all over. There, over there, over there. So parsley is a very good plant. You harvest it not completely. You leave a nice plant there so that it can get energy into the roots for the winter and let it grow up. You can harvest it in the 2nd year. I think it was the 3rd year that yes, it was the 3rd year that that parsley plant actually sent up flower stalk, but that could be due to the climate. You might be 2nd year in most what they call normal climates. The rosemary that I put a bucket over, it looks to have survived. It's not growing yet, but we never got enough warm weather for it to grow. We'll see how it goes now throughout the season. So there's 2 plants. I wanted to point this out, that you see so far up this stalk and up here, this is St. John's wort. So you come out in the spring and there's a whole bunch of dead material up on top. and you think it's going to come back right from the roots, which most of it did. But when I was cutting back, then I noticed that it was growing out so far up what I thought would be just a dead stalk right back to the root. So that is something I need to keep an eye on and see what's happening. The other thing is they're poking up out here. This is sending up suckers from its roots. So I don't know how long they was spread. See, I have one way out here. The original plant's in here, and it's 4 or 5 inches out from the original plant. So this is going to spread in a clump, putting up suckers from its roots. That's the echinacea. It hasn't started to grow yet. I got to take them up, split them, and put some somewhere else. And this is the catnip, and I noticed the same thing. You see, this big stalk was here last year, and there's shoots coming out from it about 4 inches up from where it originates at the root ball. And there was some others like that too. There's one here, and like I say, a few others. So that's something These are the little parsnip sprouts, and they're doing fairly well, coming up in every row. So this entire bed now is planted out with parsnip, and those are the Osage Orange, and they seem to have all broken off. See, broken off there. Some of them just bent over, so I don't know what's up with that, but it seems like from that point, see, the top of it seems to be dead. Of course, they're not sprouted out yet, so we'll have to wait to see. I'll have to take them up, and I think I'm going to put them directly into their final home. Now, back to the parsnips, however. I had a parsnip plant growing out here for seed. And look at the number of plants. This one even got its first true leaf. There's parsnips coming up all over here from seed that fell last year. That's a carrot plant there. Let's see if I missed the carrot. Yeah, I missed the carrot last year. See? Just a little tiny one. Mustard is something else I planted last year. So these are all mustard plants. Remember, I just sprinkled mustard seed over. Now I had mustard growing in here as well. And in some places it's quite thick. Mustard should transplant fairly easy, so in a little bit I'll get out here and I'll just rearrange these plants to a proper spacing for a mustard plant. Some are growing up in this bed, but not too many. Out here, this was the weedy bed, and if you watch the Shed Wars you would have seen I cleaned it out already. But mustard was growing in here last year, and I deliberately tried to leave some. See, there's a couple right here. There's quite a few mustard seedlings growing up in this bed, which I will have to remove as weeds. The garlic has to be the best. Look at how well they are coming up. Every single garlic is up like 3 or 4 inches. There's one short one there and another short one I see way down the other end. But apart from that, 120 garlic growing like crazy. I think I want to finish that there. It was raining. I had to stop both because my battery died, and then when I was going to come back out it started to rain. The rain had let up. I came out to record a little bit here, and pretty much the interesting stuff of the smaller plants that survived winter I've shown you. So I hope you enjoyed it, and hope you'll subscribe and hit the like button and come back for the next video. I'll see you then.